Hi friends, this is Prem. Today we are going to discuss about the very important topic, visa revocation issues. A lot of people frequently ask this question, what the people should do if the visa is revoked? What will happen if they went to the India and visa is revoked? What are the options for them? So a lot of questions are there. So we are going to discuss all the questions with our Manifest Law attorney Henry, and Manifest Law is giving a free consultation to everyone. Just scan the QR code on your screen and just schedule your free appointment. You can ask any visa related queries or any immigration related queries to them. It's completely free. Hi Henry. வணக்கம். எப்படி இருக்கீங்க?
நல்லா இருக்கீங்க?
Yeah, I'm good. Very happy to meet you after 2025. This is our first video in 2026. Happy New Year to you.
Happy New Year to you as well. Happy to be here.
New Year, there are new questions as well, because a lot of people asked about this one, the visa revocation issues. So what is going on, Henry, on that?
Basically, U.S. consulates have a lot of discretionary authority, and they do have the right, basically, to revoke people's visas at any time. And recently, we've received news and people writing online reporting that a lot of people have had their visas revoked. They might be for different reasons, and maybe for some of them, we don't even know what the reasons are. But essentially, it means that whatever visa is stamped in the passport is no longer valid for travel. The worst impact is, of course, for people who are outside of the United States, because it means they can't get back in unless they go and apply for a new visa. It's a little bit better for people who are inside the US, because a visa revocation means that you can't travel and go back into the US without getting a new visa, but your current status on the I-94 is not impacted. So that means if you're legally here, let's say on an H-1B, even if they cancel or revoke the visa, you are still in valid H-1B status inside the US.
It's clear explanation. So since you are mentioning H-1B, this is common for all the visas, right? H-1B, H-4, student visas or L visas, right?
Correct. I have mostly been hearing from H-1Bs that they have had visa revocations, but in the news, I've also seen people on student visas that maybe they attended a protest or wrote something in the school paper that was critical of the administration or something like that, and then suddenly they get a message saying that their F1 visa is revoked. And I also have one client I was working with who had an O1 visa, and they got a message from the Department of State saying that their O1 visa had been revoked. We are not 100% sure, but I think it was based on a overstay, that they had previously overstayed longer than allowed by maybe 1 or 2 days because of a flight reschedule or something like that. And now, almost a year later, they got a message saying, hey, your visa is now canceled and it will become invalid as soon as you depart the United States. But luckily, they are inside the US in valid status, so they can continue working until they figure out the next move.
Oh my God, it's really unfortunate. You said if they are living inside the USA, there is no issue. What it does mean? The I-94 should be valid, though the visa is revoked, then it is not an issue?
Exactly, because the Department of State only has authority over travel documents. They don't have the authority to just change your immigration status that's inside the United States. CBP is separate to the one that issued the I-94, or USCIS if they granted you, for example, a change of status, right? So that's a separate agency. So the Department of State cannot just declare that you are now out of status. All they can do is they say, the visa is now invalid, which means you can no longer use the visa they printed in your passport for travel. The next time you go to the consulate, they will look at your old visa and they'll put that canceled stamp on it, right? So they will make sure it's stamped so that next time CBP will see that it's no longer a valid visa. But they don't have the authority to change your immigration status. Let's say you are here on an H-1B, your visa stamp was valid for 2 more years, and you have several years to go of your I-94. If your visa got revoked, then just means don't go anywhere. Don't leave the United States unless you absolutely have to. But you have still I-94 valid. You can continue working. You can continue living here. Talk to a lawyer before you go anywhere, because you probably want to find out what is the most likely reason for the revocation before you do anything else. Because if it's just for something small, found out that you were arrested or had some kind of an interaction with law enforcement years ago, if you weren't charged, you weren't convicted, it's very likely that you will get an approval of the new visa once you reapply. But it depends on the facts, right? Some people might be in a risky situation where a lawyer looks at the file and says, I don't think you're going to be approved for a new visa, maybe, or maybe you just don't want to take that chance, right? Not to mention with all the wait lists of when to even get an appointment and all these issues. So the safest thing to do is just to be in the US, maybe apply for an extension of stay to extend your I-94 and not travel. But if you do have to travel, I would say talk to a lawyer first before you leave and try to get things organized. So ideally, if you need a new visa to get back, then you would first submit the application, get a new appointment date, and then don't travel until you know exactly when your appointment is going to be.
I have another question. Say example, if DUIs revoked H4 visa and they are living inside the USA, what will happen their EADs? Can they continue work on the EADs?
Yes, H4 status is still valid, EAD is still valid. The only way that the EAD would become invalid is if the I-94 expires or if USCIS sends you a letter saying that they have revoked the EAD. Which is, I haven't heard of anyone having that happen. So the DOS revoking the visa does not change the EAD validity.
Thanks, Henry. Yeah, because a lot of people ask that question. So I have the other question. Say example, if H1B visa is revoked and they are applying the extension, whether the extension approval will get affected because of the revocation?
Unlikely. It does depend, I think, on what is the purpose of the revocation. Just automatically, the fact that the visa got revoked does not mean that there's any problem with USCIS granting an extension. So I think the vast majority of people, if the lawyer files an extension of the H-1B, it should be fine. The only situation I can think of where the revocation could be a negative for the extension filing with USCIS is if the reason for the revocation is that they found out something that is bad, right? Something very bad. Like, if they actually find out that you have a criminal record in India that you did not disclose in your previous filings, then if they have evidence of that, then USCIS could basically say that they will not approve the H-1B extension because you have previously in the past committed fraud or misrepresentation and you are no longer eligible for this extension. But I think this is very, very rare for something like this to happen. If they are just revoking the visa because of, I don't know what they saw in social media, previously overstayed by a couple of days or some, common small things like that, then I don't think that's going to have any impact on how USCIS will treat the extension petition.
Okay. So what about DUI? I hear like a lot of people are getting revocation because of the DUI record on their license.
That's a little bit of a mixed bag, but basically DUI or anything criminal, if we're talking about, for example, United States, if something that happened inside the US, then that's all criminal law, which is state law, and immigration is federal law. So there is not one quick answer, but in most states, a DUI is not a serious enough crime for it to have bad immigration consequences, right? They just want you to disclose everything like this in your next application, but it doesn't mean that you are no longer eligible for visas to the United States. But in some states, or depending on how serious the DUI was, then it could actually make you quote unquote inadmissible, which means that you are no longer eligible to get visas to the United States or come to the United States. That can happen, for example, when somebody has more than one DUI, because in certain states there's different sections of, okay, you do one DUI, it's a bad thing, but if you do multiple DUIs, then the punishment gets worse and worse, and eventually they treat it as a very serious crime, and it can even include jail time and really bad consequences. And if that's what happens, then it could actually make you ineligible for any kind of immigration to the United States in the future. But for most cases, just having one simple DUI, it shouldn't be a problem. But it is a complex situation where an attorney would have to compare the state law and the immigration law, because there is not a very simple formula on how to figure this out. If you do have a DUI, as much as we would like to do a consultation for you at Manifest, I would recommend you find an attorney who is located in the state where you got the DUI, because you want to have a lawyer who has a license in the state where that violation happened, because they need to know how to compare that state's criminal law and the immigration law sections. So I am licensed in Arizona, for example, and if somebody comes to me and says, hey, I got a DUI in Florida, I don't know what to do, right? I don't know how to compare that because I have no experience in Florida law and I haven't studied Florida law. So I know about the Arizona criminal code and I know about the federal immigration laws, but I don't know how to help somebody who is in a different state. So the best lawyer to help would be somebody, if you have a DUI from Florida, would be a Florida immigration lawyer who has experience with criminal law as well, or what we call crimmigration, right? The intersection between criminal law and immigration.
Thank you so much, Henry, because you explained a lot of things and you very well said about how the state law and the federal law works in this case. Say example, if someone gets the email, whether they will explain the reason why they are revoking the visa?
No, unfortunately, most of these letters or emails that I see, they don't have any explanations on why. This is a real challenge because in order for you to decide what is the risk of me leaving the US and coming back in, you don't know what the risk is if you don't know the reason behind that revocation. So one of the things that people can do, it's called the Freedom of Information Act, or FOIA. They can do a FOIA request to the Department of State. There is an online portal for that. FOIA.state.gov is the URL on it as well. Basically, the law says that you have a right to ask the government for copies of your file from different government agencies. You can send a FOIA request in this online portal to the DOS and give them your latest DS-160 number, for example, and in the comments, tell where did you last apply? Was it Chennai or Mumbai? Like, what is the consulate where you recently applied for your visa? And that it was revoked, and you are asking for any documents that indicate the reasoning behind this decision of revoking the visa. What are the grounds for the revocation? And I don't know how long it's going to take them to respond to you, because I am waiting for one FOIA that I submitted in October, and I'm still waiting for it. But at least at some point when they get to it, they might give you some documents, give you more information about why they revoked it. So as soon as you get a revocation, even if you have 2 years left on your visa, a good idea would be to submit the FOIA and just to get that process going, so that maybe in a year or something, when you finally do get some kind of an emergency and you absolutely need to travel, maybe by that time you at least have the FOIA results. And that would be a good time to then schedule a consultation with an attorney, because if you can have some of the files from the FOIA and show it to an attorney, maybe they'll have a better understanding of what is the reasoning behind the revocation.
Please don't hesitate. There is a free consultation with Manifest. You can schedule with the barcode and you can get it clarified with the Manifest attorney. And I have one more question, Henry. These are all the scenarios which we are discussing inside the USA. What will happen if the people went for the visa appointment and the visa is getting revoked? What are the options for them?
The worst situation is for H-1Bs, and I was just recently consulting with somebody that this happened to them, that if you're outside of the United States and your H-1B is now invalid, then you might actually be subject to the 100K fee if you go and apply for a new visa. Because the rule for USCIS is that if you are physically inside the US and they approve you for a change of status, then the 100K fee doesn't apply. But if they send you for consular notification, then the 100K fee does apply. So depending on how was the last petition filed, you have to double check, was it approved for a change of status and then you left the US? Or was it pending still and then you left the US? Like, you got to check those facts, and that would be a good thing to talk to us about during the consultation, just to make sure that the 100K fee doesn't apply. But in most situations, assuming that the job offer is still there or the company still wants you back, then the first thing is just submit a new DS-160. Because if the petition approval is still in the petition approval validity period, then you can just submit a new DS-160 immediately, schedule the earliest appointment you can, and then, go to the appointment and be prepared. But, if you don't know the reason for the revocation, then it's just going to be a stressful appointment, because you're going to go to the embassy or consulate and you don't know what they're going to ask you about, right? It might be about some DUI or arrest. It might be maybe something that you put incorrectly on a form a few years ago, but you're going to be surprised when you go in there. The case that I mentioned earlier, that for a client with an O1 that I worked on, I'm still waiting for that FOIA, so I don't know yet anything from the embassy where they got the revocation. But based on what I've seen in the file, my best guess is that they overstayed for a few days when they were in the United States, and then later, when they filed for the visa, there's a question on the DS-160 that asks if you have ever violated the terms of your non-immigrant status. And if you have ever stayed longer than your I-94, then the answer to that question has to be yes. And based on what we figured out, we think that this person said no to that because they didn't realize that they had violated their status. They were just in the airport and their flight got pushed by a day or two. Later, they looked at the calendar, their I-94, and realized, oh, I was actually leaving 2 days later than what my I-94 said. So my best guess is that the reason for the revocation is that they looked at that DS-160 and they realized that there was one question with an incorrect answer, and it could be that, right? But it could also be that, you go for the interview and they say, hey, why didn't you tell us that you had this DUI or something like that, right? And depending on what it is, that's going to determine how likely it is that they will approve you again for a new visa. Because I think these small things like that, they could be very strict, but most officers are not, right? They see, okay, like this was a simple mistake. You didn't on purpose lie about it, but you just, made an error. But the more serious there is something in your file, the more likely it is that they suspect you on purpose were hiding it, right? And that means that it could be that they just won't even approve the next visa.
You explained about the importance of DS-160 and the data and the information. We should be always double check and triple check every time. Yeah, thanks Henry for creating that awareness. A lot of people are in the big mess now because a lot of visa revocation and a lot of appointment cancellation and family split between India and USA. A lot of things are happening, and thanks for all the awareness video, Henry, and you just clearly explained everything, and you mentioned where should people go and check, and you are sharing a lot of knowledge. Thank you so much, Henry.
My pleasure. Happy to help.
Nandri.
Andy.